This video is brought to you by Sporlan, quality, integrity, and tradition.
We've got a bar AC that upon doing a rooftop filter change, we were just kind of being proactive, looking around, and we noticed that this unit had some low pressure codes for the cooling system. Now, technically, we're still like in that rubber band transition period. It's like 50 degrees outside today, so we're in W1, like it's got a call for heat, but this thing has low pressure codes for one of the compressors. So we need to dive into this. They approved it, they want us to get it fixed. We just need to dig into this and figure out why and what stages are low on refrigerant. This guy has two compressors. If we go right here, let's see if we can go to data, select, history, alarms, compressor 2, low pressure, S88. You gotta be careful though on these Linux units, because this one I believe we've already corrected the problem, but I've seen where they switch the pressure controls, the low pressure. And if you look right here too, this kind of has some oil right here, but I don't know if even that's the compressor. But sometimes these pressure controls can get switched. This is a low and the other blue is a low. And on startup of this unit when it was brand new, those were switched. And so it, you know, in theory, if one of them runs out of gas, it's only going to shut off the other one, and then one's going to just die, you know. So you got to be careful about that. We got to go through this unit, figure out if it truly is low, if it's a low pressure control issue, all that good stuff. We have done repairs on this unit before. I think on startup, this unit, the reason why I found the low pressure swapped was because one of them was out of gas and it had some leaks. I think, if I remember right in here. Yeah, this equalizer line, if I remember right, had busted off. I'm pretty sure it's on a video somewhere. But anyways, don't know what compressor's the problem, but we need to dig into that. I wanted to stop real quick, throw this in here. I just placed a big merch order for hats, okay? From this point forward, we're only going to be selling hats, stickers, beanies. We're phasing out the t-shirts and the sweatshirts. So once the t-shirts and sweatshirts are gone, it'll just be the hats, okay? With that being said, I just placed a big order for the hats before any price increases because of tariffs and whatnot, okay? So with that being said, I'm not going to raise the prices of my hats until I have to place another order. So if you want to purchase a hat, help support the channel, go to my website, HVACRvideos.com, get them before I have to increase the prices. So I ordered a couple hundred hats. When they're gone and I have to place another order, then the prices will be going up. So jump on there if you want to, HVACRvideos.com. Order one now before the prices go up. Thanks so much. Let's get on with the video. Because I'm doing a leak search, I went ahead and just took the panels off. Now, normally you can't have these off when it's in operation because you'll be bypassing air, right, into there. But we don't want that. But I did confirm low pressure in number 2. That's this compressor. It's completely out of gas. So I had a hunch, and I brought up a little bit of refrigerant and some nitrogen with me. So we're gonna go ahead and pressurize this guy up and have a look at it. So we were cleaning out another technician's van because, you know, he moved on to bigger and better things. But regardless, we were cleaning out his van, and we had a refrigerant cylinder that we found that is missing the valve. Now, I've talked to people about this. Looks like someone had been trying to wrench on this. You might be able to wrench on that, but there's a permanent solution. It involves a screwdriver. What you can do is heat up the tip of this screwdriver really, really hot, very, very carefully with all the safety devices you need, glasses, all that good stuff. Melt it into the plastic, then let it cool, and then you can turn the valve, use it like a valve. Then what you have to do is put some sort of a shutoff valve. Now I have a core depressor right here. We can put that on there, and then that way we can open and close it. And if we make this repair today, we'll likely use all this refrigerant because it doesn't have much in it. Now I have more refrigerant in the van, but I wanted to use this thing up. All right, we've got a cylinder right here where the handle is broken off. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna heat up a screwdriver, melt it down into there, and then let it cool, and then use it as the valve to open it up. But before we do that, because that way I can get this refrigerant out of there, we're gonna have to put a ball valve on here too. So we've got a ball valve here. Or this is a shut-off valve, but it's currently going to nothing. And then what I'm going to do is heat up this refrigerant cylinder. Okay, you got to be really careful about this. This could be dangerous. Let's heat it up. Gotta get it nice and hot. Gonna let it cool. Okay. Alright, that guy is fully open. It's not really something you want to keep doing. And now it's just valved off right here, so we can open and close it as need be while we're doing the repair. So this isn't something you want to keep doing, but this will, you know, allow you to reuse this refrigerant and be able to utilize this refrigerant. So at this point, we're going to put a little bit of refrigerant in there as a trace gas. Then we're going to stack nitrogen on top to try to find the leak. So we're only putting a little bit. This is completely approved and legal via the EPA certification numbers and all that stuff. We're just using it as a tracer gas. System is off at the disconnect switch, so it's not going to turn on. Put it in on the high side. Pay attention to the test pressures on the unit so we don't overpressurize it. This guy says 236 psi is the max. Okay, high and low are open. Nitrogen shut off, valved off. So now we can go around with the electronic leak detector, seeing if we can find the leak. We are losing pressure pretty fast, so I figured I'd walk around and just do a visual. So I'm just opening the panels. I can hear hissing. I can hear hissing all in this area right here. So we're gonna get these hail guards taken off and investigate that condenser really well. This condenser's really dirty behind those hail guards, but I believe that their rooftop PM is coming up. They've only done filter changes so far, but it's like right in this area right here. It's where it sounds like. You always got to look, because sometimes there could be like screws. Someone could use a screw that's too long, like that could cause a problem, but I'm not seeing that. So it's like right in here. Maybe even right there. It's interesting. Linux, I do not understand why you guys use a metric bolt right here. Why not use standard like you do everything else on this unit? This is the only one you got to use a wrench to get these off. But yeah, this, like, I took my gloves off. This thing is leaking really good, and there's no puncture marks. Like, there's this, but that little itty bitty thing, but it doesn't seem like it's coming from there. I don't feel anything coming out either. It's very interesting. So this just looks like a failure of the coil. Some big blue on this one right here. So there's no puncture spot right here. This is just a leaking coil. Look at that. That was a really tricky one to find. I had to saturate the whole coil. I finally found a use for the fan setting on the big blue. Look at that guy right there. So yeah, something's going on there. That's a new coil. We're not even going to try to fix that. There's no point. It's not cooling season. It's not an emergency right now. Once we find out the status on a replacement condenser coil, then we can decide whether or not we want to come in here if we found out it was back ordered or something. But there's no point in trying to repair this because, yeah, we'll just get a new one. But look at that, man. Look at those bubbles. That's the big blue difference. All right, we're assembling the unit back together. We don't know what the customer's gonna do, repair, replace. I'm pretty sure they'll repair, but who knows? You never know, right? With that being said, we put the unit back together. The only thing we didn't do was, for whatever reason, I don't know why they use these, we didn't put these back in for now just because they were a pain to get out. But when and if we change the condenser, we'll go back with these. These are just little push-in grommets. I do not understand why they use metric bolts for those. It's the stupidest thing. But we've got the unit back together. But last but not least, I fired it up, I turned power on, and even though this thing doesn't have any gas in it, we got to bump this compressor. Now, it's not in a vacuum, just got to make sure that it runs. So it runs, it doesn't sound crazy. Let's do this one. Actually, that was it right there. It's that one. I mean, as best as I can tell, it works. I don't know 100% till we get gas in there. But the last thing you want to do is quote a condenser and then find out that the compressor is locked up. So we know it's not locked up. Whether or not it's pumping right, I don't know. But we can't do anything else other than bump it. So I turned off power. I'm gonna isolate it because these units, the way that they work is even if it doesn't have gas in it, if it gets a call for second stage, it's gonna turn that compressor on and run for a few minutes. And there's a delay before it cuts out on low pressure. So you gotta watch out for that. So I'm gonna disconnect 24 volt power to the contactor, actually to this one right here. So that way we make sure that it doesn't try to start up on its own ever. And then actually we can just unplug the compressor right here. That's what we'll do instead of making it confusing for someone. So now it's unplugged there. We'll tape it up, and then that way it won't even try to start until the customer makes a decision on how they want to proceed with this. All right, this unit is put back together. It's running. It's currently heating right now. This unit is about 7 years old, so they may or may not fix this. I don't know. Depends on how much Lennox wants for that condenser coil. We are by the coast, so, you know, they might end up having more problems. It is a coated coil. They had it coated years ago, but I mean, it's 8 years old, you know? So that's it on this one. Never know what you're gonna get into. I thought I was gonna be doing a repair today, but turns out I wasn't, you know? Only can do so much. When I first got this, see, I knew that this unit was out of refrigerant, and I had a feeling that I was gonna be going there to fix another refrigerant leak, such as a broken capillary, like had happened previous on that unit, or equalizer line. But you know, you never know. You never know the kind of problems you're going to run into. In this situation, it's not a repairable refrigerant leak. Now, I wasn't able to really show it on camera, but the actual refrigerant leak is on the inside of the condenser. So on the inside, there looks to be the microchannel, line that goes across that condenser. Because if you don't know, on those microchannels, unlike a tube and fin condenser, it basically has multiple like small orifices or passages that all that refrigerant's going to go through. So you're going to have multiple, individual little circuits or whatever you want to call it that's going to go to a liquid header, after the fact. And in that situation, it was nothing that was going to be repairable. The only way to repair that more than likely would be to find the spot where it's leaking, go to each side. There's going to be a header on each side, right? You're going to have a discharge header on one side, a liquid header on the other side, and you need to pinch off that little aluminum spot, solder them shut on each side, and then pressurize and hope. And I've never had very good success personally. I also haven't had very many attempts trying to fix microchannel condensers, but the one time I've tried to fix one, it was just not a success for me. But I'm also not super, it doesn't happen that often, right? I haven't had very much practice of trying to fix them, but in reality, there's a possibility that the customer is going to replace that unit, because the crazy thing is by the time everything happens with my markups and everything, that repair is going to be $15,000 because of the cost of that condenser. So it's crazy. And for a 7-year-old unit, I do not think that customer is going to put $15,000 into it. Although I will say, replacement costs are insane right now too. So who knows? I never know. But yeah, I thought that I was going to go out there and be there all day fixing a leak in the condenser, in that unit somewhere. And, then I get there and it's like, yeah, there's not much I can do about that, So it wasn't worth it. And even to try the repair, I would have to completely pull that condenser out because it's leaking on the backside. So we'd have to pull the condenser out, find the leaks, 100% verify. So I could see bubbles on the other side of it, but that doesn't mean that that's where the exact leak is, because it's happening on the other side, an inch on the other side of that, and you can't really get to it from the other side because the way that unit is designed. So you have to pull the whole condenser out, then pressurize it outside from the other side, find the spot and attempt to repair. So don't think we're going to be repairing that unit. I really don't think that the customer's going to repair the unit at all. I don't think they're going to be putting in a new condenser. I have a feeling they're going to order a new unit. They also need several other new units. At the same time, we didn't film it, but they were complaining about no heat from one of their ACs. It has a bad heat exchanger. Then the other units, this one isn't, but the other units that are up on that roof are from like 2002, 2003 range. So they're really old and has a bad heat exchanger. Then they have another unit that's still heating and it doesn't have holes in the heat exchanger, but I can guarantee if I went along with a screwdriver and just pushed on the heat exchanger in multiple spots, there would be holes. So it's going to be leaking very soon. So we shut off the heat on 2 of their units and told them, you know, they need new heat exchangers. And, you know, with that being said, I have a feeling that the customer is going to end up doing a roof sweep there and changing multiple units pretty much. All but probably the kitchen AC, because the kitchen AC is still trucking along. Although the kitchen AC is about the same age of this bar AC too, but who knows? But I never know what I'm going to get into some days, you know? And then you guys saw, you know, the refrigerant cylinder where the handle broke off. See, that's something that I've done several times. And in that situation, you know, you just got to be smarter than the refrigerant cylinder. Instead of throwing away a refrigerant cylinder that has, you know, a couple $100 of refrigerant in it, you just simply, you know, heat up that screwdriver like I did very carefully, understand the things that can happen, be cautious about flammable refrigerants, all that good stuff. 410A does have a flammable component to it. It does have R32 in there, but they put that whatever refrigerant on top of that to make the flame propagation, whatever, all that fancy stuff. That's why 410A is not an A2L refrigerant. It's because they put something else in there to make it less flammable. So there still is the potential that 410A can ignite in weird certain situations, but majority of the time when you have flame outs and things like that on ACs, it's actually the oil that's catching on fire, especially in evaporators with logged oil and stuff like that when you're unsweating. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent as usual. I really appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video. I do want to say that if you guys haven't already, please consider supporting the channel. You know, the easiest way, though, to support this channel is just watch the videos from beginning to end. That really is the easiest way. You can also support it via PayPal, Patreon, or YouTube channel memberships. Those are all ways that you can make monthly commitments to the channel. Of the amount, depending on what the platform you're using, you can change the amounts and stuff. You can also support the channel by going to my website, HVACRvideos.com. I mentioned in the beginning of the video that we just got a big order of hats just before any tariffs would hit what we are doing with these hats, right? Basically, I ordered a large amount of hats, basically, because I knew that the prices were going to be going up once the tariffs hit. So with that being said, I'm not going to raise the prices of the hats until this big stockpile that I just bought is basically phased out. So I'm not going to preemptively raise the prices of my merch. On the next order, if I have to order and the prices are increased, then we will raise the prices. So with that being said, if you want to order a hat for yourself or someone else before the prices go up, consider going to my website, HVACRvideos.com. Get them now. Again, when they sell out and I have to make a reorder, that's when I would be raising the prices. So check it out if you want to. You can also support the channel by going to TrueTechTools.com. If you find any tools that you like on TrueTechTools.com, I have an affiliate link with them. If you use my affiliate link, big picture, one word, you get a nice discount at checkout on majority of the items, and I get a small commission. So it's a great way to help support the channel. Again, TrueTechTools.com. Thank you so very much. I really do appreciate you, and we will catch you on the next one.